Mrs. Eleanor Corbin sat across from my desk, a 72-year-old black woman who was the very picture of quiet, unshakable dignity. The afternoon light from my Chicago office window framed her in a way that made her look like a figure from a history book, a woman who had seen decades of change from her apartment window. But now that history was being threatened, in her steady hands she held an eviction notice, a single piece of paper that carried the weight of a wrecking ball. It was from Alistair Valente, the billionaire developer whose name was plastered on half the new glass towers scraping the skyline. He wanted to demolish her entire block to erect another one. She wasn't just losing an apartment. She was being erased. "I don't have much, my son," she said, her voice soft but not weak. She pushed a worn, cardboard folder across the polished wood of my desk. "But my husband always said to keep everything. Maybe there's something in there." I took the folder, feeling the fragility of the brittle paper within. I'd seen this story 100 times. David versus Goliath, with Goliath's legal team usually armed with sledgehammers. The odds were impossibly long, but looking at the trust in Mrs. Eleanor's eyes, I knew I had to try. That night, my office was a lonely island of light in a dark, silent building. The city glittered outside, a testament to men like Valente. I emptied the folder. It was a lifetime in paper. Faded receipts from the 60s, a child's crayon drawing of a smiling sun, old utility bills, letters from her late husband postmarked from his time in the service. It was a portrait of a life well lived, but I saw nothing that could stand up to Valente's army of lawyers. My hope began to dwindle. I felt a familiar cynicism creeping in, the armor a public defender has to wear to survive. I almost packed it all up, ready to call her in the morning with the bad news. But her face, that portrait of dignity, lingered in my mind. I decided to look one more time. Tucked into the very back of the folder, folded into a tight square, was a single, brittle document. The paper was yellowed and felt like a leaf in autumn. The top of the page, in elegant typed letters, read "Lease Agreement, 1965. My heart sank. A lease, especially one that old, would be useless. But I unfolded it anyway. The agreement was between the building's owner, a Marcus Valente Sr., Alistair's father, and a Mr. James Corbin, Mrs. Eleanor's father. As my eyes scanned the standard legal clauses, I noticed something at the bottom. A handwritten addendum, the ink a faded blue, the cursive script ornate and nearly illegible. It looked like an afterthought, a personal note on a legal document. I switched on my desk's magnifying lamp, leaning in close. The words swam into focus, slowly, as I pieced them together. "In profound and eternal gratitude for the heroic actions of Mr. James Corbin, and for the life of my son, Alistair, which was saved by him, this dwelling, apartment 4B, is henceforth considered a lifetime gift to the Corbin family, to be held without rent for as long as they shall reside there. The air left my lungs, a lifetime gift. A debt of life, paid with a home. Mrs. Eleanor wasn't a tenant. She was the heir to a promise. The next day, I visited her apartment. The building was old, but the hallways were clean, and the air smelled of lemon polish and baked bread. Her home was a museum of her family's history, filled with photographs and memories. I showed her the clause in the contract, my finger tracing the faded words. Her eyes, clear and sharp, welled with tears not of sadness, but of remembrance. "I was just a girl," she said, her voice distant. "The winter of '65. The fire was in the tenement next door. My father, he wasn't on duty, but he ran inside. The smoke was so thick. He came out carrying a little boy, no older than 8. coughing and crying. That boy was Alistair Valenti. She pointed to a framed, black-and-white newspaper clipping on the wall. A handsome, smiling black man in a firefighter's uniform, James Corbin. Her father, Alistair's father, came to our door a week later, she continued. He was a man of great honor. He wept as he thanked my father. He said a check was not enough for the life of his son. He gave us this apartment. He said, "This home is yours. No one will ever take it from you." The contrast was staggering. The father, a man of honor, and the son, a man trying to forcibly erase the memory of the debt he owed. Valenti's empire wasn't just built on steel and glass. It was built on a memory he was trying to demolish. My first call was to Valenti's legal team. I explained the situation and the 1965 contract. I heard a chuckle on the other end of the line. "An emotional relic," the lawyer said, his voice dripping with condescension. "Legally unenforceable. If you try to fight us on this, we'll bury your client in motions and legal fees. Tell the old woman to take the buyout." I knew he was right about one thing. A court battle would be a war of attrition, one Mrs. Ellenis couldn't afford and didn't deserve. So I changed the battlefield. I wasn't going to fight a lawsuit. I was going to tell a story. I found Alistair Valenti's direct line. His assistant tried to block me, but I was persistent. Finally, his irritated voice came on the line. "Valenti, Mr. Valenti," I said calmly, looking out my window at the city he owned. "My name is Michael Evans. I'm an attorney representing Ellenis Corbin from the Elm Street building. The eviction is proceeding," he said coldly. "Take the settlement." "I don't think we'll be doing that," I replied. "You see, I found something. I found a story you forgot to tell." There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I didn't need to say more. He knew what story I meant. The story of the billionaire developer trying to evict the daughter of the hero who saved his life from a fire. That wasn't a lawsuit. It was a headline. A public relations nightmare from which his legacy would never recover. Within the hour, his lawyer called back. The tone was entirely different. The eviction notice was rescinded. A formal apology was on its way. The new glass tower would be redesigned, built around the small, defiant brick building on Elm Street. The last time I saw Mrs. Ellenis, we sat in her sun-filled living room, drinking tea. She was at peace. The weight of the world lifted from her shoulders. "You have your father's spirit, you know," she told me, patting my hand. "He fought fires, and you fight them, too." Leaving her building, I looked up. It stood there, small and unassuming, a testament to a promise kept. A brick-and-mortar story of gratitude, standing defiant as a new glass tower began to rise beside it. What would you do in this situation? Share in the comments. If this story moved you, like and share. For more cinematic life stories told with depth and heart, subscribe to Voice of Sophia and ring the bell for notifications. Thank you for listening, for feeling, and for being part of this community. See you in the next story.